Radio 2 Evening Show.
That's right. It is a Radio 2 Evening Show. That's the Friday's edition.
Radio 2 Evening Show.
Just a quick rundown on some of the stories that are making headlines this evening. Government effects a ban on people coming from countries where the Ebola virus has been recorded so far. The breastfeeding week comes to a close today, and Kwacha shows a little movement against the dollar. These and many more items right here on the Radio 2 Evening Show. Now, the media is said to be the third wing of government whose role is to give checks and balances as well as inform and educate the public. In many instances, what the media reports is taken as gospel truth, and negative reporting usually puts a country in bad light and affects potential investment to any country. Joining me in the studio is Ray Wilburn, who is the chief editor at Partners Guide, and forgetting Michael Greenwell, who is a journalist trainer. Gentlemen, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having us, Mabel.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are talking about how the role the media can play when it comes to reporting positively or negatively. Let me get to you, Michael. What has been your observation? You are not, coming from Zambia. Probably just give us a little bit of your background.
So I was a journalist in the UK for about 10 years, a music journalist initially, and then a journalist for news covering health, politics, education, crime and the courts. About 3 years ago I made the switch into teaching, and I've been working at a college in the UK teaching journalists who want to get into the industry. And I've also been in Zambia the last 2 weeks. Last week we were training finalists in the Partners Guide Young Business Journalist of the Year Awards.
That's right. You have been in Zambia for some time now. What has been your observation as regards to the media's works, reporting?
From what I've observed, the journalists who have come to the training alongside our finalists in the Business Journalist Award competition have been extremely professional, extremely hard-working, and their contributions to the training have been most valuable. In terms of general observations about the media, I've read quite a few newspapers since I've been here, and generally the reporting has been quite eye-opening, really. Today there was a very interesting story about somebody who had run away with a dancer, and for me I was just surprised that it was on the front page, that it had attracted such attention, really. It was just one man, and it's focusing on his life quite intimately. Maybe there are bigger stories which perhaps affect more people that could be put into the news, and certainly ones that are more beneficial to society, more in the public interest.
Okay, when we talk of public interest, what qualifies that public interest?
Well, obviously that story is very interesting to the public and potentially sells a lot of newspapers, but I would say the public interest is more about journalism which informs, educates and benefits society. So something quite different to what the public are simply interested in.
Okay, let me get to you, Ray. When it comes to a negative reporting, what are the implications of negative reporting?
Well, I heard you mention negative reporting earlier, and sometimes negative reporting can be positive. I think it all depends on why that negative report is coming out. I think what a journalist really has to bear in mind is that when they are coming up with a negative report, they have to think, okay, well, what I'm writing, what is the impact of that report going to be? Is that report, which is negative, going to have a positive impact on society, or is it going to have a negative impact on society? And also, I think if a report is coming out which is negative, it has to be properly researched and properly sourced. And I think some of the issues we've noticed in the past with negative reporting in Zambia is that they've tend to be poorly researched and poorly sourced. And when one media organisation comes out with a negative story that may happen to be poorly researched or poorly sourced, other media houses will follow suit without perhaps doing their own research, and that can have potentially very negative consequences, particularly in the field of business and economics, where we've seen negative reporting cost a lot of jobs. And we're in a country which is developing, which still has very high unemployment, and we don't need negative reporting to be adversely affecting businesses if it's costing jobs. We need negative reporting to be adversely affecting businesses if those businesses are not behaving responsibly or not behaving themselves. But we need to find out exactly what's happening in these cases and make sure that everything is properly researched and properly sourced and looked at from all different angles.
What has been your observation comes to issues to do, reports and maybe a publication where you've mentioned to say some reports are poorly researched? When it comes to researching when it comes to a good report, what constitutes a good report?
Well, I think a good report is one that tries to get as many angles of the story as possible and angles from respected sources. So if you're doing a negative report on a business, let's speak to people from that business, but let's also speak to other connected stakeholders, like people being affected in the local community, maybe people in the supply chain, maybe independent experts on that particular area of business. So we need to get as many different angles on the story as possible to get a well-rounded and balanced opinion on exactly what's happening. And I think more often than not, we tend to attack business in Zambia and try and highlight the wrong things that businesses are doing. Yeah, sometimes they are doing wrong things and those need to be highlighted, but it needs to be highlighted in the wrong way. But what I would also like to see more of is positive reporting about business, because I think in the public interest we also need to see some of the positive things that businesses are doing. And I think from an international investment standpoint, it's also nice that they can see that yes, businesses are making a positive impact to society and they're not just having a negative impact as well. So we need a well-rounded opinion. I'll not mention any names, but let's say, for example, there's a report about a mine which is having environmental issues. I would want that mine to be investigated for that. But also, if that mine is doing something positive for the community around them, and let's say, I don't know, they're teaching the local community agricultural skills which are making them much more productive and much wealthier, then I'd also want to see that reported. It's not just about how can we attack business and obviously by attacking businesses, that usually probably sells more newspapers as well. It's doing things in the public interest. And I think that's the key thing that we're trying to highlight here, looking at things in the public interest. And I think on the Partners Guide Young Zambian Business Journalist of the Year award ceremony on Wednesday, that was one of the points that the Minister of Information and Broadcasting Services, Honourable Dr. Joseph Katema, was highlighting that there is a culture of negative reporting and poorly researched and copy and paste reporting, and we need to start coming out of that system and be more professional and more responsible as a media. And hopefully the competition that we've just had and some other initiatives that we'll be looking at doing in the future can help contribute towards that. And once we do contribute towards that, hopefully we can make Zambia a more attractive place for investors to come. And obviously when the media becomes more responsible, it should be afforded greater press freedom as well.
That's right. This is an evening show, and remember, this is an interactive show. The number you are coming through is 2507 48. That is the number you are coming through, and I play host to Ray Wilburn, who is the chief editor, Partners Guide. Not forgetting Michael Greenwell, who is a journalism trainer. The number is 2507 48. That is the number you are coming through right here on the evening drive. Now, let me get to you, Michael. Having listened to Ray, and I think you were part of the ceremony where the Young Journalist of the Year was being awarded, and you heard the remarks that came from the Minister of Information and Broadcasting. How then do journalists rectify this situation whereby, they report correctly and make sure that they have, well-researched reports?
Well, there's several ways. Establishing that relationship between business leaders and journalists is probably the start. It's all right slamming journalists and criticising journalists, but also I've noticed a culture of kind of suspicion towards journalists from business people, and so I think their role is also to understand the role of the media and play their part, really. I mean, that's quite difficult. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think once a journalist gets into the mindset of looking for the positives to report, establishing that relationship, while also holding businesses to account in an accurate way, in a balanced way.
Michael, I'll just ask you to hold your thoughts. I think we have a caller on the line. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. You're through to the evening drive. I'm sorry, may I know who's on the line? I'm so sorry, your line is very bad. Can you call us back? Sorry, we had to cut you. Your line is very bad. You can call us on 2507 48. We apologize for cutting you, but you can call us back on 2507 48. And I play host to Ray Wilburn, who's the chief editor, Partners Guide, and not forgetting Michael Greenwell, who is the journalism trainer. I think, Michael, you can continue with your line of thought.
Okay, I mean, principles of being fair, balanced and accurate, serving the public in terms of researching stories well and presenting as many sides of the story as possible. Something you asked earlier was about what I've noticed about journalism here. There certainly is a keenness to present what minister and government says about different events. That's not really getting to the heart of many stories. So during our training last week, we had some journalists visit, and they were very keen to listen to the speeches that were being given, such as by Ray and by the ambassador, the Swedish ambassador, where the event was being held. But I noticed that there was a reluctance to speak to the young people who were involved, and the whole programme last week was about them. So journalists have a responsibility to represent the communities that they are writing for, and not just really look for government speeches, ministers' speeches, and just regurgitate them in a fashion, which is exactly what the Honourable Minister said at this week's ceremony. So there's many ways to actually provide that responsible reporting, and awareness of ethics is also essential, really. I must just say as well, in the UK we have had many issues with journalists recently as well. It's not for us to come to Zambia and say that the problem is in Zambia only or Africa only. We've just had a very high profile case where mobile phones were being hacked by a small minority of journalists, but that has affected trust in the entire industry. So this cultural change that I think is happening in Zambia, that the minister was suggesting and alluding to, it's not going to happen overnight, but journalists who are well trained need to now take up the mantle and really provide that responsible reporting and set an example. I think once that trust is gained, then business people, for example, will be much more willing to to speak to journalists, and that relationship can be developed. And I think one essential thing that business people have to realise is that by holding individuals and businesses to account, it helps Zambia overall and the sector overall, because you can't have one rogue business tarring everyone else. So the journalist role is essential in scrutinising business, scrutinising individuals, and that is people in different sectors, in health, in education. It's a responsibility that they're very privileged to have, really. So.
That's right. The number you come through is 250748. Remember, this is an interactive show. The number you come through once again is 250748. And on our main interview, we're talking media and responsibility when it comes to reporting. 250748 is the number you come through. Now, Ray, whose responsibility is it when it comes to reporting effectively, when it comes to transparency, accuracy, and fairness? Where does the responsibility start from?
Well, I think one of the things that the Swedish ambassador Lena Nordstrom was discussing was, with press freedom comes a lot of responsibility. You can be given all of the freedom in the world, but if you're not responsible with that, then it's going to have dire consequences. So I think it's almost like a chicken and an egg scenario. If you're not going to have responsible journalism, then maybe you can't have the greatest amount of press freedom. But again, maybe because you haven't got the greatest amount of press freedom, journalists maybe are not also taking what they have as seriously
Ray,
as
I would
they could.
ask you just to hold your thoughts. Let's try and squeeze in a call. Hello, Good evening. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
May I know who's on the line and where you're calling from?
This is Miss S calling from Solwezi.
Okay, thank you so much for coming through. What is your contribution?
My contribution is that when we talk about negative reporting, we should not just consider the English media, also the local media. Like last time on ZNBC, some local program where a journalist was busy asking the public on like he was reporting and guiding them like sports is very bad. So I didn't like that kind of reporting. It's so negative. So when we talk about negative reporting, we should not just concentrate about the English, but also the national reporting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. 250748 is the number you are coming to. 250748. I'm hosting Ray Wilburn, who is a chief executive editor, the chief editor at Partners Guide, and Michael Greenwell, who is a journalism trainer coming from the that's UK, should I say, that's the United Kingdom. And the reason why I'm hosting them is because they were holding a training of local journalists, and this is the reason why I'm hosting them. 250748 is the number you are coming through. Hello, good evening. I'm sorry, I lost that call. 250748 is the number you are coming through. They were running a competition of the young journalist, that's a business journalist over here, in order to promote business reporting amongst young people. 250748 is a number you are coming through. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
May I know who's on the line and where are you calling from?
Yes, I'm the voice of the voices, Chimba, calling from Kasama.
Okay, great to hear from Kasama. How's Kasama this evening?
Kasama is fine.
Okay,
and, warm a bit.
Okay, that's great to hear. What is your contribution?
My contribution is that, excuse me, on reporting, really, we are getting a lot of information from the media, the journalists, and so forth. And the other area which I would like to comment is that also the journalist doesn't look at the rights of the persons, because the persons have got their rights, privacy, whatever. Most of the time they dig, they want to dig to know the privacy of others, so that they can bring the surface everything which they are doing in private, in private. privacy is really very important. It's also a law. Everyone needs to have to maintain privacy. So on that one, also that area, that is a negative reporting, of course, we can call it, because we need people, we need journalists who are giving us good information for us to know what is prevailing in this country, even outside the country. That is very important. And these people, they are very important to me, because we do know something which we really don't know. Because sometimes, even if we are watching television, it says that maybe it's a media, it's a journalist, those who bring those informations on the TV or radio or in newspaper and so forth. But that is the area which I want to articulate, to comment on privacy, because privacy must be there. Even a journalist must have a privacy and so forth. So
okay.
that. Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for that thoughtful contribution that you have brought out. 2507-48 is the number you are coming through. 2507-48 is the number you are coming through. Now, Ray, you were still trying to bring out a point, and one of our callers has just brought out a very important point, which borders on privacy. I know in the UK we have what we call the paparazzi, and where do we draw the line when it comes to responsible reporting and invading in other people's privacy? But before you take that one up, let's try and squeeze in another call. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening, Bebo.
Good evening to you, Saminas. On the line, and where are you calling from?
Let us confine ourselves with negative reporting and positive reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Define these two. Okay,
Sure.
this is break my word. Define these two. First is the reporting and negative reporting. What you are trying to do with.
Okay, so excuse me, if I can answer that one then.
Thank you.
Negative reporting would be something which is maybe attacking an organization or a company or an individual. Now, whilst it may be negative, by attacking that organization or that company or that individual, it may actually have a positive impact on society, because they maybe need to be aware of what this organization or business or individual is doing. But we're also talking about negative reporting that has a negative impact but is poorly researched and perhaps also isn't in the public interest. So there's negative reporting which is positive, and there's also negative reporting which is negative as well. If that kind of helps to describe what the difference between the two and the variances between negative positive reporting and negative reporting.
Okay, and when it comes to invasion of our privacy, where do we draw the line?
Well, privacy is certainly covered in the ethical codes that European and UK journalists adhere to. I mean, it's a very big argument, this one, with a lot of different angles, really. In terms of when privacy is invaded, sometimes the public interest actually outweighs that person's right to privacy. So if somebody is in a high position of responsibility and they have a job of representing the public's interests, if they are flouting that responsibility by acting in a certain way, there are many examples that are in the media, then I think there is a right to actually look at that person, put them under the spotlight. That is the media's role, really. However, everyone has a right to privacy, and if that privacy is just being invaded just so that newspapers can be sold, then there is obviously an issue there. It's not for the benefit of society. It's for commercial interest, not public interest. And that is where editors must take a responsible approach to journalism. They are the people who assign news assignments to their reporters. They are the people who send their reporters to certain jobs. They're the ones who request photographs of certain situations, certain scenarios. They must also question whether the job for that reporter is in the public's interest, really. But on the other hand, there is also a hunger from the public for certain salacious, certain scandalous stories. So it's not going to change overnight. It's very difficult to look at what the public want, and if that is going to make a business money, not deliver that to the public. But I would say editors initially need to take that responsibility. They need to put more investment into training. The quality of education for journalists and people who work in the media coming through needs to be of the highest standard. And there needs to be a varied palette of journalism. So, you know, if there are certain publications or certain stations, certain broadcasters who are feeding that hunger for scandal, then also there needs to be some more reputable and more informed, more in-depth news alongside that. Whether or not the government possibly has a role in that, or whether or not a regulator potentially has a role in that, then that is something which is a separate debate, and something which I'm sure people will have a view on in Zambia.
Okay, and of course we just being joined by Mary Ann, who's also journalist trainer. Mary Ann, welcome to the interview and welcome to ZNBC.
Hi, thank you. It's good to be here.
Mary Ann, just give us a little bit of your background.
Well, currently I'm a production journalist for the Press Association in the UK. It's the UK's leading news agency. So I'm a sub-editor there at the moment. I study journalism. I've got a Bachelor of Arts from Nottingham Trent University. So yeah.
Okay, great. And how did it feel to be a part of the Young Journalist of the Year, Young Business Journalist of the Year, which was organized by the Swedish Embassy and Partners Guide? How was your experience having a one-on-one interaction with the young journalists and the working journalists in Zambia?
It's been absolutely amazing, and it's been really rewarding to be a part of something that could help to promote change within Zambia's economy and also the media.
Great, and it seems you've just come at a time when we were trying to, differentiate or bring out issues to do with professionalism, and where we draw a line between invading into somebody's privacy and practicing journalism. What would be your comment in line with that?
Well, it is definitely a tricky subject, but there are sort of, in the UK, there's laws in place and ethical codes for journalists to sort of know where they stand, if they're on the wrong side of the law or the right side of the law. And I think possibly having that developed here in Zambia could help to bring more quality in the media.
Okay, what has been your observation when it comes to some of the reports you've been, that you've read throughout? Do you think there is a professionalism being exhibited?
There is definitely, but throughout the training we've noticed that with some of the students, there are some sort of things they don't really know about or they're not really aware of that they could use to increase the quality of their reports. And maybe that's something that the government and Zambia can look to sort of improve that journalistic quality.
Okay, I think we have come to the end of our interview. Let's say ladies first. I know you've come in late, but I'm giving you the privilege to make your concluding remarks first before we get to the gentlemen.
Well, it's been really exciting to be here and to be a part of the Partners Group, Partners Guide Young Zambian Business Journalist of the Year Award, and it's just been such a great experience for me, really.
Okay, let me get to you, Ray. What would be your concluding remarks?
I think it's really been an interesting experience, and I think looking at the keenness of a lot of the young people, and also for the people that we've spoken to currently within the media, like the likes of yourselves at ZNBC, the likes of the Daily Mail, and also some of the comments from the Honourable Minister of Information and Broadcasting Services, there does seem to be an appetite in Zambia to improve the quality of journalism and also to cover more on business and economic issues. So hopefully some of the things that we've been involved in the last couple of weeks can act as almost like a catalyst for promoting change in these areas, and hopefully change for the better, which is going to lead to a better informed public and international investors being able to make more informed investment decisions in Zambia. So all of this is going to be positive for the economy if it can be built upon and acted upon. So I think it's potentially a very exciting time for Zambia, and a time where journalism can definitely improve for the better.
And finally, Michael, your concluding remarks.
I think just to develop one of Marianne's points, we did mention the government there in terms of how they can fit in with this, but what is crucial is that a free press must exist, and that is something where it's a process of the industry regulating itself, having a body which journalists contribute to, independent of government control, because otherwise you can't possibly have a free press, and that is something which is being debated in the UK at the moment. The Press Complaints Commission has been disbanded, and it's something that the government is now looking to get involved with by setting up a royal charter. That is something which journalists are currently opposing. I think in Zambia, although there is a need for greater debate, greater education around ethics, the journalists themselves, editors, need to be involved with that. Government's role should be one of support, one of funding, both for journalism, culture, the arts, but the journalists should be allowed to be seen as professionals, well-trained people, and be trusted with the responsibility of seeking out an ethical code that they can adhere to.
Okay, gentlemen and ladies, it's been a great pleasure hosting you. We wish you the best, and we hope you continue with the road that you have embarked on of imparting knowledge in the Zambian journalists.
Thank you very much.
There you heard it. I was playing host Ture Wilburn, who is a chief editor, Partners Guide, and I also had Michael Greenwell, who is a journalism trainer. I'm forgetting Marianne Pickford, who is also a journalism